Welcome to the cold hard truth.
And welcome everybody to edition of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host. I'm here with my co-host today, James Bell, contributor for college football and boxing.
Doing all right here, man. Doing all right. Just here live at the Sheraton Atlanta Hotel in downtown Atlanta. Just to the college football playoff national championship game here with the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Georgia Bulldogs. So, just this matchup between these two teams.
I know yesterday was 2.5, almost 3 hours there. To had it available for the most part, get some them. You have to do a lot of reading between the lines and understanding what they're meaning by what they're saying, because they're not going to say a whole bunch,
Right.
especially with you can ask the offensive defensive coordinators. Those are my favorite ask, along with the head coach, because they don't really plan out what they're going to say. They just have an understanding that much.
Right.
For everybody, what we drew from, we'll get into the game preview, how some of these teams got here, be how they got here, or be also in the synopsis of breaking down for the game. So it's a special episode. It's a little bit shorter. All episodes on Tuesday. We will have a show on Tuesday, but for the edition we wanted to do here, we're at the Sheraton Hotel hub for media days. Like, you can hear the music in the background, so that's provided of the Sheraton Hotel.
Music. I'm sorry. Worse than elevator music.
It's like if elevator. This is what they would play. Hippie elevator music.
Yeah. The elevator music. Yep.
Yeah, again, go over to the social media, HT on Sports, at the on Sports. James, you put it over on yours.
Going to basically share it on my page here in the next few moments here. So,
I mean the content you put it on your page, your Twitter.
Yeah.
It's JBZ
for 2003.
For 2003, yeah. And then mine is Matt Long Sports. A lot of content over on Snapchat as well, but definitely Twitter, Facebook are areas you want to go check out a lot of the content and stuff that we have up over there. So, roll as Georgia. They are coming into this. They're considered the home team in the playoff, and they're coming off of a high-scoring for the Oklahoma Sooners. James Rasp from Georgia yesterday when we were able to talk with them.
A couple of things that I was able to get through a few of the podium Michelle and Raquan Smith at Media Day on Saturday was that they were having their best efforts trying to get past that Rose Bowl victory, as exciting as it was, getting that 54-48 double overtime victory over Oklahoma. They wanted to, get past that game and then prepare for Alabama, because it was like a different approach to, facing or a team in Oklahoma that had Baker Mayfield offense, that pretty much got ahead real fast on Georgia before Georgia was able to make their second half adjustments. A team that basically, has a that's the best in the nation, specifically in the rushing game. That is a conservative approach that runs the ball and doesn't make mistakes at all. It's like you got to go from week to week for completely different teams. That's what I got out of and particularly Raquan Smith, the star linebacker, All-American for Georgia.
In the kind of an odd thing, Sony Michel had 3 touchdowns in the Rose Bowl victory, and the run that ultimately sealed victory for Georgia in that game. So I'm going to be drawn. What was kind of, in a sense, to me, was a lack of attention to Nick Chubb. The setup was essentially smart in the middle. To his right was Sony Michel. Then Daquan Smith, and then the defensive coordinator. That's the whole setup to the right. Now, there's a whole bunch down Kirby Smart the entire time. Sony Michel at the beginning, and pretty much had somewhat of a crowd the entire time in front of him. Had a few people there at the beginning. Half the time there, and again, this is an hour, so for about a half hour, I had scragglers the entire time, which is odd. I think because the top running back prospects, he's some people think that he may be a better prospect than Todd Gurley in some ways. I don't, but they tout him like that. Having that alone, we're a month away from the combine. We're a little over 2 months away from the NFL draft. Point of asking about Cap his career here, because the media they take a lot of events like this that are special and try to use those sound bites and that information to build up for future articles. So if you're building a profile for in the future, so even if you don't write too much or quote what he's saying, it's something you're going to build up for the future. But he was the man at the beginning of the year, and now at the end of the year, paid to Sony Michel. Now, I'm not going to say that there's some sort of locker room because they all seem very tight.
Right.
And I don't want media to construe that.
Right.
They're very competitive. And I know you talked to him a little bit about that, didn't you, Matt?
It was like a short little talk out there with Nick Chubb, but us personally, we really didn't have that much time as far as like dealing with the Georgia players that were there. See, not that many people around Nick Chubb, considering that he's about to transition over to the National Football League. Was kind of surprising to me, specifically, going from his previous performance at the Rose Bowl. It wasn't like, Sony Michel, do everything guy in the Rose Bowl. Nick Chubb was no slouch either. I mean, he also had like 145 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns at the Rose Bowl game. So it wasn't like he had a game and ended up being benched for the rest of the game in double overtime. It was just that, basically had the bigger story. Not only the touchdown and won the game, the 2 the previous long runs that he had before, and also fumble that he had that ended up being returned for a touchdown that could have cost the Rose Bowl. So, I mean, a lot of attention, over at media day, but that still doesn't take away what's going to happen, what may happen upcoming in this national championship game against Alabama. Oh, they're short Sony Michelle and Nick Chubb in this game, and that's going to be part of their game plan on Monday night in Stadium. So, what I'm looking forward to is how they are going to run their offense against Alabama's defense. There, we saw in the Sugar Bowl and saw that there was a stark difference in how they performed in comparison to their last game in the regular season against Auburn. They didn't have all of their players back on defense, weren't necessarily able to execute on offense either, but specifically the defense. Auburn game to the Clemson game was just looked like a completely different team, and I think that was because of the depth that they were able to have and the players that were able to come back for that particular game at the Sugar Bowl.
Now I know part about and talked a little bit more decided with the Alabama side about some of this comparison, or rather familiarity with these two teams. Kirby Smart clearly being the previous defensive coordinator in it at Alabama. Pruitt on the other side through Georgia before.
Right.
A lot of familiarity between recruiting these players, familiarity between common employers. So there's a lot to draw from here. It's friends against friends, a significant amount of familiarity between these two teams. Now, again, it comes down to who you ask. That familiarity is playing him. I think some of that is a factor here. And Kirby Smart against statistical odds here because his former assistants that is something that would be rare and unique to do. Now, he did highlight a little on during media days that they're here in Georgia. It's essentially a home game. Also, the home team. I know when we cover boxing, we talk. The boxers sometimes say, being a home team in a championship fight, being the home fighter, difficulty because there's a lot more distraction than a normal other fight that's within their state. So I asked Chubb, Nick Chubb, about it, and he hasn't seen any sort of drawback from it.
Right.
So again, from sport to sport, football players, I guess, don't feel it as much. From the few guys that I talked to on either team, but it's something that maybe because it's easier with football teams. It's funny as it is, 100 and some guys, to isolate outside environments because they can potentially do a lockdown of the team inside the hotel, and they do that a lot to where they'll rooms and stuff like that and game rooms inside a hotel if it doesn't have it. So they go all out to make sure that these kids stay in an environment that's going to be conducive to them drawn away from the game. Kind of like after Georgia beat Clemson, two players getting over receiver.
Oh, you mean
what was
the
arrested for
SEC championship
DUI?
game with Auburn?
Yeah. So again, involved in this game. Neither of them are playing to. It's definitely to come out victorious in this game based on what I've seen this season. Now, Alabama. We had Alabama for an hour. We got them for the full hour. Actually, we were able to have a little bit more. We got some. Actually, if you go over on social media, you can see posted up on the Facebook page on sports Facebook page. The Alabama players were playing PlayStation in this year, and actually had set up there monitors, NBA 2K on one, Madden on two of them, Madden on two of them, and then they had FIFA on the other two. So they were all crowded around, hitting sticks, playing the game. So it was and I like that better because last year just had more to sit down.
Yeah.
So really wasn't too much of an advantage.
Yeah, they kind of were conducive for the players in the last year, and I think like you were mentioning here with Georgia and whatnot, that they kind of wanted to make it to where are kind of loose, kind of basking in what's happening over the course of this week, that it doesn't weigh too much on them.
Yeah.
You did mention Georgia in reference to being like a home game for them in Athens, which is like a couple hours away drive from here, but perform here in the SEC championship game. So it's pretty much going to be like a repeat of that as far as like the atmosphere is concerned. So it's that much of a burden, and like you mentioned, is teams players up to 100 players on the roster. It's not like everything is weighed on one particular person. With boxing, when you have like for example, Hartford that has his fights in Nebraska, or like a Ricky Hatton in the past, or Anthony Joshua over in the UK, where it's just one person with a whole bunch of fans behind him. So he has all of that pressure because he has all that attention. All of the attention goes to that one person instead of the attention going to 10, it could be 20 players. So that's the thing that Georgia this weekend leading up to the national championship game that they have to deal with. But it seems like it's easier for them with that here in the coming days.
We got to spend, like I said, more time with Alabama, with Georgia. I think from my end, I was able to draw quite a bit from it, and again, more of my questions were looking at how to deal with. Most of my questions that I ask are dealing with another game. What concepts are they looking at here? They're not going to give me too much as far as what you see here. Times, if you've never been to the scrums, you take note not just to the players who's around you, but also people are around you too, because they're able to ask really good questions and quality football questions. There are a lot of people that ask typical questions that you're not drawing anything from at all. I don't think the fans from it. I think they're just, as a writer, it's helping them find a couple of different adjectives. It's just changing the words on the paper, changing the content or the meaning. So, finding those people and listen to their questions as well. And we do, I know a lot of people are like, well, if you're at Nick Saban, how do you know what Pruitt's talking about? It's a couple things. We have these earbuds that we can listen to every question and every response. Is we get transcripts, questions from all the players and coaches that are selected. Now, all the players are there, all the players and coaches. You just have to walk up to them, questions.
Yeah.
Now, we did content, from what I know. We only did content with featured coaches and players. However, I did talk to quite a few players and coaches as well. So, again, they have certain players and coaches set up for valid reasons. So, from Alabama's draw from it.
Well, with Alabama's media day, particularly, is on this particular national championship game. So many of the college football fans know that college football playoff for 4 years now, and Alabama has been part of it for all 4 years. Championship will be their third consecutive national championship game. Last year, they lost over at the Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. So my approach with most of the players that were there, particularly and there and Rashawn Evans that was there at the podiums, was that they approached this particular national championship game, particularly with Jalen Hurts, as about ended last year with Clemson 31, and picture of him walking off of the field at Raymond James Stadium. You'll have to get from that how he would feel if he was able to finish this particular game championship. You'll be able to see particular interview Facebook page, and also check it out on DCHT on sports through Instagram, and I also have that Instagram page as well, JBZ4 2003. So that's what I got out of Jalen Hurts when I interviewed him. With Rashawn Evans, there, he's a senior. He's been part of their defense, all 4 years. Been part of the college football playoff for all 4 years. Championship games. Last game, collegiate career. He kind of approaches this game like 4 years, and I've been part of this college football playoff for 4 years, been part of these big games, and kind of thought about like, wow, I've for all of these years, and so he just wanted to pass down to being part of big games to behind them back there in the linebacker core. You know, if he was able to finish his collegiate career with a national championship, I mean, it would mean everything to him. You know, there are also, you know, times like you were saying, there's, you know, giving questions that kind of like for some of those players, but also you kind of like had things where, you know, they were trying to have
us
fun.
weekly at, you know, what is it?
They also had like, you know, questions to loosen them up. You also had, you know, players like Deshaun Hand approached Rashawn Evans one time and you know, who his favorite teammate was on the team. So, you know, a mixture, you know, trying to, their mind frame is going into this game on Monday, but also seeing a little lighter side from those players and also the coaches as well. We also got that with the Alabama Crimson Tide, because we actually got the coaches there for Alabama.
I want to welcome everybody in Snapchat. As you see here, we're in the Sheraton Hotel, Atlanta, live for the show today. Also, listening live over on Blog Talk Radio and the Spreaker app. Free to download the Spreaker app. You can go listen to it over there, as well as YouTube and SoundCloud, where you can also get the podcasted versions of also the website, of course, the chtonsports.com. Hand corner, clicking on the listen link, and it'll get you right over there. So, I think one of the interesting things, like I said, with Alabama, I was able draw more from them, I think, as far as what they were looking at in an offensive coordinator that has experience and college experience, and still kind of stuck to what traditionally. What you'll see this year out of Alabama, and what we've seen all year, and those of you watch championship games because they're a bigger deal,
right?
If you haven't watched Alabama all year, but you did watch them in the championship, this is going to look different last year. They do have talented running backs, although I think Georgia has. I keep saying these two running backs, but in reality, Georgia has that they can.
They have three that they regularly use, but they could use up to four in their roster. So they're mirror image of what we're seeing here in this game between Georgia and Alabama. It's just that figure out have the on defense, whether it's on offense, that'll on Monday night.
With to Pruitt, how he feels that if this familiarity that would help or hurt them. He said it could kind of go either way. Generally, they do, and they're going to stick to what they do most weeks. But when you tendency where you are so familiar with and the coaching staff on the other side and the kids on the other side that you've recruited, that sometimes there could be that tendency or that door could be there open through that you could end up overthinking a situation, over strategize. I know Kirby Smart likes to do this. It's made a little wrinkle in his playbook that I learned from you.
Right.
It looks like that he does or doesn't do it. Maybe you overthink it and you leave yourself open to your touchdown run. So it's kind of those things where you could information a bad thing. On the other end, coordinator didn't really give me anything on that, but a big smile. Kind of moved on from there. I got two big smiles out of that. Then I asked him, essentially, when we look at this playoff, I talked about this on Tuesday. Levon Kirkland was on the show. Talked about that, and Kevin Kress as well. We kind of drew from it is Alabama, the 4 seed, was more so treated like a number 1 seed coming into this tournament because they got a bye week, whereas had to play in to this game. You know, Clemson had to beat Miami to get in. Georgia had to beat Auburn.
And Oklahoma had to beat TCU.
Exactly. So it's another matchup where all 3 of those teams had to beat teams that they've already played. Makes the tremendously more difficult by having to play a team for the second time because now you've learned things, you know.
With the exception of Clemson, Clemson, where they played the likes, so they had.
They didn't have Miami.
They had Miami on the schedule, but had Louisville on the schedule. The state, which is always a close game. One of the out of conference games was against Auburn near the beginning of the season. Part of the series that they had. So a kind of schedule that.
And hats off to Auburn. Home and home.
Yeah.
I'll hit on that.
Yeah. So with Clemson, going up against Miami, over in the ACC championship game, you had Oklahoma TCU Big 12 championship game. Georgia Auburn during this season for the SEC championship, took. Yeah. But with Alabama in this particular case, with them not playing in the SEC championship game, they had a week of rest. Stories over the course of the season was the depth on defense, and that they didn't really have that much, in the 7 and also with the secondary. But with this week and then the break before to January 1st, so off before the Sugar Bowl game against Clemson, and that benefited them tremendously. Being real, that benefited them tremendously approaching that game against Clemson, and they were able to do to Clemson's offense where Clemson just could not do a thing through the run game, not through the passing game, not anything, and kind of like helps them out here. Game on Monday, even though one of their key players in this game here against Georgia, as Anthony Jennings, near the end of that game against Clemson, injured his leg, so he won't be on Monday night. But it was like completely different than last year where Ohio State was able to get in. Even though they didn't win the Big Ten, but Alabama, they took advantage of the playoff, and now they have a chance once again national championships in their second of national championship, and dynasty may continue for yet another year.
Interesting going through this. And the coaches, and in this environment, talking about, because some people will try to talk about past games, are tremendously focused. Now, without a question, that some glaring disadvantages in this game, even though personnel they stack up really well. Alabama had game that they played game was on November 20. That means they had 37 days off. They had to play Clemson.
Right.
Saban 37 days. Clemson. Rest his players. Now that's only another 8 days of rest. But 8 more days is when it comes to impact sports like this. I mean, Kirkland spent at least it's of our segment with him that was just specifically him talking about how important rest is, especially in a playoff environment, because everything changes. You can't necessarily, as I said, you necessarily coast through a season. You get hurt. Hurt, but essentially in a way that you exert yourself more. Like you give it all during the season, but you're trying to. It's maybe the last game. That's why we end up seeing more injuries and stuff like Jennings.
Right.
We see them going out. And by the way, he had knee surgery, so ahead of the NFL draft, and few from Alabama I feel like they have come out lately. They end up having surgery just before the draft. It seems to be kind of. We won't get into that right now. The other thing being is a bit of a strength is Alabama has tape against Clemson and against Auburn twice. So this again,
reference to Georgia over the course of this season.
Yeah. So
their big games were against Auburn. They did, also play Notre Dame.
But the reason I'm saying it's more of a draw because Alabama, when you can look at like opponents, it helps you in your process of strategizing, breaking down game film. You know how your players stack up against them. So although Georgia and Alabama haven't played a head-to-head this year, have seen them play Auburn once. So although Clemson, how they prepared for Clemson. So I can see some of what they do here. They can prepare in a similar way for Clemson because the advantage is I know people say that for Georgia, he's a pro style. He's really athletic and he can scramble well. So I think even more than being a runner, that he's a quality scrambler that can get yards. I think that's a bit more dangerous than being a runner. His passing skills are much better than Hurt. And I think that he has a bit to them as far as it comes to quarterback and running back, slightly towards scales. As wideouts, I think on the other side for Alabama, I think a little bit more edge at wide receiver than Georgia.
About advantage. I mean, Calvin really is a very, very good player, but Alabama's offense runs kind of like
it doesn't run through the receiver.
It doesn't run through the receivers. Like it's more of a quarterback dependent type of offense. So you're not going to may see like a little bit of play action where they'll be able to utilize Ridley, so to speak. But most of this year, we haven't seen Calvin Ridley like stand out in the past. Of course, you had Julio Jones in the past.
The championship game,
Yeah.
and if you draw back to previous championship games, and Alabama's whole mindset is pound it, pound it, pound it, pound it, pass.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what we'll see with Alabama here, and I think Brian DeBall for Alabama, I think he's going to come out here. Realizes that Georgia's keying in on the run. I think Alabama is going to try to test on the second and third level. They're going to look to utilize Ridley early, and they're going to look to utilize more and stuff that worked last year or under Lane Kiffin. Some shorter
Mm-hmm.
2-3 step, or what it would be a 1-step plant throw, pistol or shotgun formation. So I think that's what they're going to look to do that, because Alabama, I think, is going to look to involved with a bit more of some screens, utilizing the wide receivers more on the perimeter, as it starts to soften up, because the linemen for Alabama they're leaning on these guys all game. The defensive linemen are going hard, not getting there. They're trying to go hard, not get there. Just on pass rushing, sometimes what that does is lull them, winding the clock, where you guy circle the game going, so everything. What we're doing is essentially winding the clock, and what that does is open it up for Scarborough or somebody to take it right up the middle and then start pounding it. Now that's drawing the linebackers back in, really upsets the balance of the defense for Georgia. See, that's the thing is Oklahoma was really successful at. It's because they don't have a pounding rusher. They have, James. He's a speed guy. He's really shifty. He's smaller, so he can hide behind, his blockers. But Oklahoma opens stuff up in space. I could see Alabama at the beginning. I'm willing to bet if you're looking at prop bets, Alabama's first play is a run. Without a question, it'll be a run play. I think everybody's prepared for that to be a run play. But then I would look for 3 or 4 consecutive pass plays, switch it up. Because that's the thing is, great teams do is able to capitalize on things that are far outside their tendencies. It's not about good at. Alabama can do this. Ridley's an amazing wide receiver. That's why I said I give them the edge on talent and a receiving core to Alabama here. Again, that's not saying that Georgia doesn't have talented wide receivers, because they do. But I'm just giving Alabama the edge. And I think that they're going to try to, with a bit more showing some spread, and not spread, more open component to their offense, that they have the ability to do well, even though their bread and butter is running the ball. Because what that'll do is it brings the hands down so they can hit the face. I think that's what they're going to do. They'll switch it up here in this game.
Well, I would be interested to see how this is going to be in the opening quarter of this game. Know that they have a bevy of running backs. They use Harris a lot. Earl, focal point of offense. Najee Harris there in the backfield as well. To see how he's going to be able to passing game against this Georgia defense. They previous two national championship games that Alabama has taken part of, plays in the passing game didn't go to their receiver, it went to their tight end. They were able to coverage or confuse the coverage well enough. So here's OJ Howard come across the middle, wide open on the streak, where he was able to score Clemson in those previous 2 years. But now where they don't have OJ Howard anymore, they have like redshirt freshmen coming in there right now. Also,
but I think that opens them up even more because they know that doesn't have that player. So I think that's how you can open up the play action earlier.
It is an opportunity to open up the play action. In my opinion, I feel that Alabama sticks to what works more than any other team in the country. That you see something approach is if they see an opening or they see an opening in the defensive formation. For example, if they're like in a spread formation and for Georgia doesn't match up, they're going to find that open as fast as they could and get it going. Specifically with Jalen Hurts, because it's not like he makes the right play, and that is like a gift and a curse at times. Sometimes when you see the big play, you're not able to make it because of your ability as a quarterback. Now, out of Jalen Hurts in his previous game at the Sugar Bowl against Clemson, where guys open, or he may have had an opportunity to like throw big passes, and it wasn't able to complete them because he couldn't make that type of throw. So here against Georgia, I'm looking to see if those openings in coverage or in the openings in Georgia's defensive formations that they will be able to exploit once the ball is snapped. And if they're able to get that big play, get big yardage out of that, or score a touchdown from it.
Now, on the other side, I think, because I think distinct advantage at quarterback. I think he's a freshman. Have some jitters. I would assume so. Even those people that are cool in these situations, that's why I see probably Georgia's going to come out focused with Michelle, screen passes, get his confidence up, get him eased into the game. They're not going to push it. Whereas I think it's going to come out as they're doing on their playbook, because they have a younger quarterback, is going to come out a bit more conservative on running. I'm settled in, so this way they can do the game. And basically, that's the way that in the Rose Bowl, there he was at the beginning. It was kind of like it wasn't really going, so they want to probably get him settled down soon, do some high percentage passes, short, 4 or 5 yards, and then just try to move the chains time. Because that's kind of the goal. The goal on a run play is you want to get yards because that's either going to set up third and short or you're going to get a first down every time, getting 3 to 5 yards. So they're going to probably stick with consistent stuff like that.
Yeah.
Now, and they do that. Hard part is on the Alabama. If you know this, Pruitt was kind of leaning. If you have a tendency, you know, kind of something, maybe you overthink it. Players, you want to keep them easy, saying, okay, we game plan this. You see this before. Feel this. You want to take advantage of it, but you don't want to get too much information. Can be completely an enemy. So, open. You jump a route, it's not there. Double move, the back, the post route behind. This is a safety bit. That the post route is wide open. So, you know, those are the kind of the things that decision making call, especially when it comes to familiar with each other. Like I said, I think some distinct advantage. Now, we talked with Jeremy Pruitt a little bit about their some injury there. There's been some turnover at linebacker. Obviously, Jennings is out for this game. Surgery. He's done for. He will not play. What Alabama does that it's not unique to Alabama. Do is kind of, I think, in some ways, all school approach to when they recruit. They don't recruit linebackers like to say, linebacker, you're a middle linebacker. We're going to look for a middle linebacker. Guys that could potentially play in a where they have 3 backers, all their backers to be able to play any of the linebacking positions. And throughout the season, they're giving guys reps at those positions. So this way, when we come upon a situation where Jennings is out, of being out is lessened of the fact that guys behind him have had reps at that position. So they move their guys around. This is why we see some of the linebackers and defensive is really with when Alabama players go to the next level successfully. Not always a particular position in college. So
when you have like a linebacker, as you brought up, positions, they learn different coverage techniques. They learn different to be at, whether it's a pass play or a run play. Then once they do transition over to the NFL, they're able to, because they're all over the field, so they could, depending on their size, they could end up being a safety as well, in college and in the NFL. And that approach kind of, that works for Alabama, and they're very deep in the linebacker core, but also are very versatile. So if they have that type of versatility where, they could play like at linebacker or be a middle linebacker, that it works for them, on both instances. So then there that, kind of Pruitt has an approach with their linebacking core, and it also like helps their this particular game. I'm not certain how Vince is going to approach this game. Sony Michel and that could get the pressure off of Jake Fromm, but being too predictable instance, or being too conservative or too safe. Saw in the Sugar Bowl, Alabama, particularly with Clemson, is that they kind of gained conservative against Alabama. They didn't do things to take chances. It's almost like, okay, yeah, I do have these running plays. I do want to, as my running backs and my quarterback. You have like a weakness in Alabama, and in a lot of and a lot of times, weakness has been the secondary. Exploit that against Alabama, so that we on their back foot, so to speak, on defense. I will see if Georgia is able to use Jake Fromm, see if he can get big plays on the edges out there at receiver, and also and things like that to kind of like keep Alabama on their heels if they were able to do that opening quarter of this game on Monday night. I would say, like on Monday night, what we have here with Georgia and Alabama, like we've mentioned earlier about this kind of being a apprentice type of matchup. You know, Nick Saban there on one side and his former assistant on the other side. I think it was like, you know, earlier about, in particular with Kirby Smart being asked to go against his former mentor, so to speak, and I would say like what the pressure would be to go up against Nick Saban. And I've heard about the times that, you know, Nick Saban is faces former assistants. He's pretty much like won every time. You know, here with this Georgia Alabama matchup, we're kind of like seeing if, you know, the sleeve that, you know, Nick Saban doesn't know about, or if Nick Saban, he didn't necessarily teach, you know, there. So I'm kind of like interested in that, if it's like a, you know, master versus apprentice type of thing, you know, going off the team that happened in the past couple of weeks and everything.
The whole everything you know, but I didn't teach you everything I know.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah. Exactly like that. It's like, you know, but everything that I know, it's like, okay, because, you know, Nick Saban have for him, you know, particularly on offense. Smart wasn't aware of, you know, while watching the team when he was at Alabama, because, you know, he was watching those scrimmages and those practices. Nick Saban, just the full playbook that he had, you know, alongside his offensive coordinator at the time. And that, you know, I would like to see if, I feel that may be what this comes from, not necessarily from busting coverage or a bust in alignment. It has to be something where kind of see yourself, you know, aligned correctly, but you really didn't expect coming out of Alabama. And I would be interested to see if that been on Nick Saban's side.
I kind of keep, and I think a huge factor. Game planning is going to be interesting. The strategy between familiar foes, you know, thinking and knowing that Ross and that former beat him. So none of his assistants seemingly have gotten the same amount of success as quickly to this level as Kirby Smart has. Yeah. So, again, it's kind of a question before our eyes. We've kind of seen do more than the others' assistants have in the past. This may be to him doing what nobody else has done in that regard as well. But he's just coming off a game. There was a double overtime victory. Coast. Mm-hmm. A lot more energy. If any of you, I think about even when I'm traveling by myself, let alone if it's with my kids. Having 2 5-year-olds traveling is backing because they wanted where you are, and there's a lot of people, Yeah. So, it's either you're the run to the speed of Flash, or it's like I gotta wait 5 hours. Almost like I'm going to wait 7 hours in an airport in Atlanta, Gainesville, or Tampa. I'll just get a 6. I'll save myself 2 hours. It'll probably be cheaper to have a car. I don't know. It's just look at a one-way ticket there. It's just it's like you wonder like how some of these things are that really you can relate with how they beat down on your body. Now, I know they compare car accidents, mini car accidents. If you go over to the website, thechtonsports.com, we actually have an article up that I put up over there. I wrote because the NFL is investing dollars into safety and player health. A lot of which is into all of it's either into basically like neuroscience, new technology to help prevent head injuries to make the game safer. But essentially what they actually use dummies in those studies, in that research, because that's the best use of the actual equipment. It's like simulated car crashes. So they have a full game of that. Had quarters of that. And then the West Coast, which is 3 hours, went through the mountain central to get to the east. Got the same, but they didn't exert the same energy. Again, I'm coming from the West Coast, a bit of and quality rest, play longer. And again, they had to get to that game. And their last regular season game before they played Clemson was Thanksgiving weekend. They did not play in the month of December. They had basically off at the end of November, and then played January 1st, where Clemson played the day after Alabama, and then Clemson played. Even Clemson going into that game was at a significant disadvantage because they had played their previous game before that, Alabama. Then they had to go play Miami, a high energy up tempo team, for their championship game before they played Alabama. So on a field, particularly in a championship or playoff atmosphere, there's that onion that get peeled back and get exposed, and now you are offering up something to your opponents, a glimpse, a situation now plan for or plan against. And that is, again, the bye weeks are so important. They say that, Alabama, like you said, they do what works as predicated on the offensive line. They have a mobile quarterback. Some of that offensive line, they run a lot. So it's not a lot of guys sitting there time after time being more tired in pass blocking. Time and energy to go backwards and side to side and block than just run forward and plow over somebody. Less energy exerted that way. Run pass blocking does take a bit more energy. So do that. Thing is, when we're coming down to this, how they match up. And again, I just want to reset here real quick. Thank you all for listening. I know we have a few callers on the line. We're not going to be taking any calls this week, but Tuesday, if you call in on Tuesday, the regular number 347-237-5539. If you call in on Tuesday, again, thank you everybody over on Snapchat for checking us out today. Me and James here live from the Sheraton Hotel in downtown Atlanta. Again, this is a special episode for the national championship game Monday. You can check at Matt Long Sports. Stuff is at the CHT on Sports. Again, for those who tuned in on the free Spreaker app, you can hear the show live, unabated on the Spreaker app. Just go to your app store and download Spreaker. You can listen to us live. And thank you for those who listen to the podcast version of the show over on SoundCloud and on YouTube as well. I know some of you versions of this show, a couple different versions of this show that is for YouTube, SoundCloud. So definitely check that out. Thank you for tuning in at the CHT on Sports and at J Breezy 2003. So check us out there. Now, what I'm seeing as far looking at the breakdown teams, and like I say, I'm giving the advantage at running back slightly to Alabama. Now, does that advantage, is it going to change the game? I think at quarterback and running back, for in a lot of ways that gives them in this game, puts them ultimately at the end of the game in a situation could win this game. I think Alabama more consistent and stout run defense in the country. So because they have those succinct advantages, they're going to have to try to utilize more. Successful will be to look from settle down, set early. I think because Alabama's steady, more consistent approach will do something outside their tendency and open it up early. 3 or 4 pass plays early score. Oftentimes, whoever scores first wins. Championship games doesn't go into deficits at all. They're often not in a situation where they have to come back from deficits.
Mhm.
So, Alabama, drum roll. Here's my prediction that this game, and it's going to come down probably to the last for either team in this game. And it's going to be wildly entertaining. But Alabama, Georgia leads at one point, half, or just after half, ultimately wins. And it's not going to be, it's going to look like it is a stronger passer than he is, but I think their system around high percentage throws for him and them utilizing more bootleg plays for him to open up the coverage, get the ball into those pockets on the defense. So Kirby start smart, kind of that is where it goes. But I see Alabama winning in this game.
Interesting there that you say that Alabama would win by a slim margin. I feel that, I guess it would look like similar to games that they had against each other in the SEC championship, where it kind of like came down to the final possession.
A yard.
Yeah, basically, where, to finish. I guess here that may come. It may come down thing there where it would come down to a big play by the Alabama defense to hold on to win this particular game. For me, I give the edge to Alabama. Be like, I would say would be within 7 points. If it was more than 7 points, because of defense has played Sugar Bowl. I know that the injury, they've been much fresher this bowl season and this college football playoff, and that's really big. They'll have a lot of players coming off rotation on the defensive line, a lot of players on the rotation, linebackers, and in the secondary. Coaches give different looks to Jake Fromm, and I don't feel that offense will play quickly. The Alabama defense, saying that they're going to play conservative, I'm saying that they may be uniform in the offense that they're going to do to where have Alabama thrown off on defense where they're basically on their back foot. So
you think kind of their similar fates is what Clemson? I know you say Clemson was actually more conservative, but it's not same, but similar kind of fates where it's almost too scripted.
Yeah. Kind of seem predictable. My thing with the Alabama and how they've performed over the past 6 or 7 years plus. Impressive record, over the past 6 or 7 years. And games that they've close calls were against a quarterback that was mobile. All that with Deshaun Watson in the national championship game in the previous 2 years. I think we saw that close game that Alabama had with, Mississippi State. All that in their loss. There we had Jared Stidham at quarterback, and sometimes able to run the Wildcat formation on Alabama. To me, you have to have some type of mobile quarterback. Throw Alabama's defense, out off. I don't feel that Jake Fromm is mobile enough to throw out the Alabama defense. I know that had like a Oklahoma on offense, made adjustments from there. Alabama is a team that if they get a lead, they really don't give up leads. Like I've said before, Jalen Hurts, he often makes the right play. He doesn't make the big play. He often makes the right play. You don't get that opportunity to get turnovers, and if you do, you really. We saw that in the Sugar Bowl in the second half, where Jalen Hurts had a bad exchange on the handoff, ended up fumbling the ball, and Clemson got it, but ended up basically going 3 and out off of that, which kind of like changed the course of that particular Sugar Bowl game, because after that, Clemson was not able to score. And if you're not able to get that type of momentum against Alabama, you can pretty much forget about it. So for me, I say that Alabama has the advantage. I'd say around 7 points. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it would be more than 7 points for Alabama. I just don't. Will be able to do something to throw off their defense, and then on the flip side, defense will be able to opportunity to force turnovers on the Alabama offense.
Oh, from media day again, just so kind of people know. Yesterday, trying to shoot my prediction or theory down here. Up until yesterday, I honestly with Georgia was going to win this game. Yesterday, I just want to take a sidebar to kind of you were saying again. What last couple years being able to be at these events and Saban, being able to be in front of the camera. What I've kind of learned is some of the secret sauce that has isn't, and I know, and you kind of got him. James asked him. I haven't heard anybody ask him because it was kind of a. And I like the way you set up, kind of inferring that he's tough on people. He's hard. He's rigid, but maybe he's he has a more lighter side that is off the field, or when does that come out? And he kind of paused a moment where he was like, "People think I'm some type of with people. Like I'm just I just bully them around." And it kind of like. I wouldn't re-described it as hard on them. Essentially, more in like being,
exactly.
Being tough with them. It's helping them. I think talking about you come into with a lot of high emotion. Everybody's now they go from talking. It's trends. Media wants to talk about how do you feel about this game? What's your emotions? Like they want to psychoanalyze people. Aren't going to tell you much, and most of the people asking the questions, their intent to give some sort of a psychoanalytical approach to what these people are doing. They're not qualified, nor do they understand what questions to ask to get those answers, anyways. So I know a lot of media people. Think the room, I could say I've probably been guilty on it a time or two as well, But I think the secret sauce kind of he has is where the amount of guidance
Yeah.
and players to where he communicates to them what his expectations are, but at the same time, the amount of high emotional impact on the game, because everything is play by play by play by play. It's not looking at game. It's all this wrapped up. You know, we didn't get to play for a champion. A lot of that build up and emotion and stuff. A lot of that's media talk. A lot of that's it's hyperbole around the event that's coming up. It's stuff that we talk about as media people and fans, so we can get more emotionally engaged and fall into it. But it doesn't really have so much to do with the players. Is there emotions involved? Absolutely. Are they high emotions? Yes. Is it a tense situation? Yes. Is it euphoric at times? Is it time where that maybe some of them are naive to the situation? Of course. So other guys more seasoned. This is more Alabama. This team only known the end of their season title, literally, because they've three. This will be their third straight national title they play in, and they've won 50% of them up to this point, and we'll find out where it goes from there. I don't think start seeing Alabama players emotional reaction. There's definitely something wrong, and then there's going to be some openings. Even doesn't have players. He has them playoff skill and what they've practiced. They practice harder than they play. They play to make the playing easier. We see this in the NFL again. It, they practice a lot of different situations over and over and over and over and over and over again. If that situation comes up, it's not foreign to draw from in their memory and preparation that they can put into that, even if maybe ultimately isn't what works. But now they have something to draw from. They understand situations and stuff like that. And football preparation come a lot to situational play. Really good at staying consistent, even if it's moving away from what they're best at, stuff that they're good at.
Yeah. Now, in reference to Coach Saban, and I asked him, goes off of theme that fans and people that cover the sport of college football kind of think of Nick Saban. And you brought up Bill Belichick, and that compared Nick Saban to Bill Belichick. And I asked him that question because, I kind of wanted him to, he's not necessarily a hard on his players and on his assistants. On it by saying, necessarily consider himself as a hard coach, a demanding, like he has an expectation to do, and how that translates on the field. So he wants to just develop as people, football field, outside of the football field, inside the university, and so that all-rounded person, the football player. He says that if he wasn't able to reach years and develop him, that literally completely do his job. A lot of times when you see a lot of these Alabama players, I think that's the overall theme with the Alabama Crimson Tide football program is that disciplined players that reflect off of philosophy. And so able to push that and that they're able to succeed on the field, then the same philosophy off the field and be successful people and in their communities.
And I wholeheartedly, I know, just so people realize that most football coaches, especially at this level, are interested in their players being successful.
Right.
Because their players being successful, you get players that help make them successful. It's a two-way street, whether any way you look at it. I know in management and stuff like there's a lot of times where you learn more about managing and people do the job better from situations you run into with employees. The manager has all the answers. Saban is that way. He's ending, but where greatness is wanted, is desired out of them, a lot ended of you. If you want to be great, you got to give great effort. You can't get great. So what he does, and again, he insists on coaching the defensive backs. So coaches will kind of march around practices and kind of oversee everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Even specifically overseas, the corners, the cornerbacks specifically, he coaches them.
Yeah.
That's his position. He's a position coach. Some don't. Some are former coordinators. So everybody kind of does it a little bit different. But I think it isn't because he's a perfectionist. It's because he enjoys doing it. And if that was something he'd have to give up, I know Pruitt said if he had to give up being the defensive back coach, the cornerback coach, he. I will talk on Tuesday's show. Inevitably, after this game, but inevitably, everybody they retire.
Yeah.
Very successful. Some because they have to. Obviously, him in his 70s, he's closer to the not.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an overstatement. But Tuesday's show, Saban from college football, and why I see. So make sure you tune in to Tuesday's show of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. Again, 8:30 to 11:30. Get it on Blog Talk Radio and on the Spreaker app you can download for free.
Yeah, in reference to Nick Saban and him getting closer to, I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, very soon. If this game here, if they're able to pull off the victory, like we predicted they would, 6 national championships, and most national championships pretty much in the era, easily go down. greatest head coach of all time. With that accolade on him, it would almost seem like that's it. I've done this for me to do as the head coach of Alabama. There's nothing else to do. Stays there and gets one or two more national championships and puts himself at a level that could reach years, then I don't necessarily see him else college football and in football in general. I think that he's kind of like said, okay, getting to a point where I think that in college football, so what else is left? And now I just see his tail end or his retirement coming very soon.
I'll share how soon I think it is on Tuesday. That's pretty much going to wrap it up here for this special edition of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports radio show. Be sure to tune in Tuesday again from 8:30 to Dark Radio. Also available on the free Spreaker app. Go to your app store, download it. If you're watching here on YouTube, down below, subscribe to this channel, Eugen, or you might be listening to the audio version. We have two different versions that go out. Follow us on SoundCloud as well, cast version there as well, and then
of a show tonight on the GoLong. I usually do, for those that don't know, I usually do a boxing radio show. 30. We'll be resuming on the 14th to preview upcoming. We'll kind of start up the week after. So the Boxing Source radio show will be on Sunday 14th at 7:30.
All right, wonderful. And that's all for us here. I appreciate all of you who listened in, no matter who you are, where you're listening from. Here, head on over to the website, thechtonsports.com, at thechtonsports, at Matt Long Sports. That's all.